Well, hello, retro game players. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Marcus, and today I'm going to be showing you my top 10 Nintendo Entertainment System games from the year 1985. Let's check it out.
Nintendo Entertainment System. When you master Rob, the video robot, and meet the challenge of Gyrobite. When you shoot the light-sensing Zapper. When you play the system with so many arcade hits, you're playing with power. The Nintendo Entertainment System Deluxe Set. Batteries not included, Super Mario Brothers, and other games sold separately.
1985 saw the release of the Nintendo Entertainment System here in North America. It had been in Japan for a couple years already, and a lot of these games were already released there. So this is our launch lineup, which is pretty cool, I must say, but that also means that a lot of these games are very arcadey, pretty simplistic graphics, also simplistic gameplay. But with all that, they all have really vivid colors, and I would say that this is a pretty strong lineup, and that's why I was able to grab 10 of them. So, without further ado, let's get in to the very first one.
Number 10.
So coming in at the bottom of the list is a light gun game. I love the Zapper. You know, it's weird because there's not that many games that really use it, but you'll find on this list there's quite a few. So the first one is a Wild West themed game, and it's Wild Gunman. Now this game was actually mostly famous because it was on the Back to the Future Part 2 movie. There's a scene with it. But what I remember about it is that the graphics are actually really good. For the Nintendo, and it actually really made the Atari 2600 kind of look like crap in comparison. So the graphics are really good. Gameplay wise, it's sort of like a reflex test. So, you know, a gunman will come out and he'll basically say fire, and you have to draw on him and shoot. You actually just have to shoot, and basically if you do that, then you win. If you die, you die. I personally like the other mode where it's like a scrolling town and basically they pop up and you have to shoot them. I think that's awesome, and the reason I like that so much is because I actually really like Wild West games like Mad Dog McCree on Sega CD or 3DO, I think, too. And then also like Lethal Enforcers Part 2, anything like that, anything with the Wild Wild West, I'm totally into. So that's why I like this game. And again, the graphics are super colorful, pretty detailed, and that's why this is number 10.
Number 9.
Coming in at number 9 is Pinball. Now, I'm a huge Pinball fan, and that's why this is here, but I distinctly remember renting this game and playing it, and it's weird because it's like one of those games where it's not that great of a pinball game, but what's interesting about it is if you start to play this, it's pretty addicting. Like you'll actually, you know, just the time will fly while you play this. I really enjoy pinball games. I even like the digital pinball games. So as far as this one goes, I don't mind it at all. I actually have a fun time playing it. There's a ton of shots to do. The table is interesting enough. And the graphics, again, fall into that strange category, I guess, of like all these first generation and this early launch titles, you know, they're all very vivid and they just look really good. And when I think of early Nintendo games, this is one of those ones that just kind of pops up. So anyway, Pinball comes in at number 9.
Number 8.
The 8th game on this list actually is the first game I ever saw running on one of those big screen projection TVs. I went over to my friend's house and he had rented this game and he had a full-on big screen TV And here it is, Kung Fu. Now, Kung Fu is brutally tough. It's one of those things where you just walk side to side. Enemies are kind of coming at you from every direction. It gets tougher and tougher. It's kind of fun. I just have a lot of nostalgic feelings with this one. And I really like just kind of the sound effects. And yeah, I don't know, the graphics are really appealing as well. So gameplay wise, it's super repetitive, but it's very challenging. I like when you're able to pull off a jump kick. That's really cool. So anyway, yeah, I gotta say though, the first time I saw this on a big screen TV, it just blew my mind. Like I remember playing it in the dark, or we turned the lights off because the TV looked so much brighter. And it was that same weird thing that would happen on those old TVs, where if you got sideways, it was actually like kind of dim and you couldn't see it, so you'd want to be right in front of the TV. And anyway, I just remember experiencing that for the first time, seeing Kung Fu running on that big old TV. But anyway, number 8 is Kung Fu.
Number 7.
The number 7 game is Hogans Alley. Now, the reason I like this, again, I really like light gun zapper games. The only thing that gets crazy is that clicking from the zapper. But I remember seeing this and thinking the graphics, again, were really appealing to me. It was on the back of the box of the Nintendo. Lots of different posters featured this game. It was everywhere. This was like advertised heavily by Nintendo. And what's interesting about it is that the mode that you mostly see is where the targets come up, like you're in a shooting range. And that's pretty much the most boring part of the game. The better part of the game is where you actually are like at a live set, and that's really pretty cool. It's not perfect, but there is some charm to it. I think it's pretty fun. Again, I'm always into light gun games, and as they progressed with technology too, I mean, all those arcade games are awesome, but like, House of the Dead and all those, I love those. So anything like that on the NES, those are just games I like. So Hogans Alley, it's a good game, comes in number 7.
Number 6.
Ice Climber comes in at number 6, and this game has amazing, vivid colors and pretty addicting gameplay. It's super arcade style, definitely has a platformer element to it. You're like this ice climber dude, and you want to go up. That's basically what you're doing. So it's definitely a platformer, but you've got to bust the blocks above you and then jump up to the next level and keep going. And then meanwhile, enemies will try and take you down. Some enemies will actually bring and replace the blocks that you've already busted, which makes it tougher. And then there's icicles that'll fall on you. The graphics are just so cool. I mean, I remember this actually being in the Versus arcade. So Nintendo had that arcade machine that was like the Versus one. And I remember seeing it at a pizza parlor once and just thinking how cool it was. And anyway, this is such a great game. It's really, I would say, underrated. If you haven't played it, check it out. But yeah, it gets tough though. Pretty soon there's clouds that you can jump on. Each level gets a little tougher, obviously. But these clouds start moving. And as you're doing that, you still have to hit the blocks and break them to go up above it. And it almost reminds me of like Super Breakout or something. How you had to do that on some levels, like break through a row of blocks before you could proceed. And anyway, it's actually a really fun game. You've got your axe, you can attack enemies. So that one comes in at number 6, Ice Climber. Definitely check that out. And before we get to the remaining top 5, we've got a commercial break. Check it out.
We are Nintendo Ultimate TV Game System. We challenge all players. You cannot beat us. Aim your zapper gun. You cannot beat us. Even with your robot partner. You cannot beat us. Score 1 million. You cannot beat us. Discover new worlds. You cannot beat us. We are Nintendo. We challenge all players. You cannot beat us.
Number 5.
All right, 5 more games remain. And coming in right in the middle, and it's a classic, but overlooked by a lot of people. And I think it's just because it was probably overplayed, you know. But here it is, Duck Hunt. And Duck Hunt was one of those classic light gun games. This is the third light gun game on the list. Duck Hunt has the most charming graphics and gameplay, and it's super addictive. And part of that is because of your dog. He mocks you if you miss a duck. That alone keeps you going, you know. And additionally, there's a whole other section of this which is tougher, where you do clay or skeet shooting, and that's actually really cool. So they shoot 2 targets at once, at least on the beginning, and you have to shoot 2 of them. You only have 3 bullets. That's also really cool. But in the arcades, I remember seeing this game getting so much play, and you could hear it on the Nintendo Versus cabinet. I mean, it was just so like memorable seeing people play this game, and it's just classic. I mean, the thing is like it's so forgotten, you know. But the graphics on this and the style and the actual design is so simple but so great. So there you go. That's Duck Hunt. That's coming in at number 5. The number 4 game on this list is Mach Rider. Now, Mach Rider is an awesome arcade-style motorcycle game where you're basically flying around curves, avoiding oil slicks, watching out for rocks, which totally suck, and also blasting buggies and other vehicles. So it's actually pretty awesome. It reminds me a little bit of like Spy Hunter mixed with like Super Hang-On, but it's a really fun game. It's tough. And, you know, it's an early racing title, but it's pretty solid. Out of the first lineup, this is a pretty solid racer. So I think it deserves to be there. When you start, you can either choose endurance mode, basically where you're just kind of racing. You can race solo mode, where it's just you and no other enemies. And then there's this like action mode, where you're basically, you know, just shooting everything, and there's combat. And anyway, it's actually a pretty awesome game. So that's why Mach Rider is number 4. Let's check out number 3. Alright, we've made it down to the top 3 here, and number 3 is a game that I'd say is overlooked a lot. It's a Mario game. Yes, it's an official Mario game, and it's Wrecking Crew. Now, Wrecking Crew is actually really interesting, really cool design. You can't jump, but you are Mario, and you basically walk around and you smash everything on screen. You can open these doors that confuse enemies. There's multiple levels. It's definitely a platformer, and usually there's an enemy or 2 or more chasing you. And you have to do certain things in order as well to advance, so it's got a puzzle element, but tons of levels on this game. It is extremely addicting to play and extremely charming. So this one comes in at number 3, and a lot of people overlook it. But Wrecking Crew is awesome, and it really actually reminds me of that Disney movie, The Wreck-It Ralph. If you haven't seen my video where I play that, I played on the Sega Genesis, and it's pretty similar in a weird way. But anyway, it's classic arcade style. It's something that almost looks like it's from an alternate reality if you missed it back in the day, because it's so well made. So anyway, that one's number 3. Let's check out what comes in at number 2. Alright, number 2 is a game that I first remember playing at a friend's house. I went over to his house, and this guy, man, he had it all. He had a pinball game, he had an arcade game, and he had a ton of Nintendo games. And we booted this one up, and it was unreal. We seriously played it all day. It was a Saturday. We played it all day, and it's Excitebike. This is probably my favorite game on the system, personally, although number 1, which I'll talk about in a second, deserves to be there. But this game is so fun. It's a really cool side-scrolling racing game, whereas Mach Rider is more of like the third-person perspective and really more a traditional racer. This one's cool. It's like side-scrolling. There's jumps. You can either race alone, where you you know, can avoid sand and gravel that slows you down. Big jumps. You basically want to time the way you hit your boost You can overheat and explode your bike. When you crash, sometimes you'll fly off your bike and you have to hit the button to kind of run faster. That's always something really cool. And I think Road Rash sort of took that from them as well in the design. But yeah, solo mode is really fun. And then there's like another mode, which is Type B. It's more of like a championship race where there's other bikes on the course with you. And it's a lot more challenging because you have to avoid hitting them. But what's cool is that you're always balancing your boost. And the secret really is to use your boost right before big jumps. And it's, you know, that helps you achieve your flight. And then you want to land it too. And I mean, this game is just so fun. And the thing that really sucks you in is there's actually a level editor, which is really fun to do too. And the level editing is one of those things where we spent hours and hours building these tracks, and then we would have the other person play them. And so we would do that. And anyway, I love Excitebike. The sound effects, the graphics. I mean, this really was one of the best games on the system, and it still holds up. So that's why it's number 2.
Number 1.
Alright, we've made it through 9 awesome games from 1985, and this is the final one. It's coming in at number 1. I know a lot of you know which game it is. It's Super Mario Brothers. Super Mario Brothers is an insanely innovative and amazing platforming game. It's fast, the controls are super tight, and what's really crazy is, of course, everyone's played this to death so much, right? But back in the day when this was out, this was so awesome to play, and it was unlike anything else out there. I mean, it was like an entire adventure that you went on. And my first NES, when I got it, came with this game and the Duck Hunt cartridge. But I had played this previously at a friend's house, and I mean, I just remember playing it and thinking like, wow, I'm underwater now, and look, I'm in caves now, and plus there's like secrets and all this stuff. And as you're progressing through the game, you know, it just gets harder and harder. And the last castle, how you beat that and how you have to beat Bowser, it was just so awesome. I mean, the whole thing was just an amazing game. So back then, it really, really, you know, I don't know. I remember actually one time when I was about 7, I beat this game in front of a room of like 5 other kids, and they were all cheering me on in that last castle. And it's something that will always stick with me. I mean, I just can't, I don't know, there's so many moments, you know, with this game. I even remember parents playing this game and just sucking so bad, and it was awesome. It was like so hilarious that anyone could pick this up and try. And it was almost like pure comedy, you know. And I think that that's why it took off so much. But anyway, Super Mario Brothers is number 1 for 1985. And that wraps up this top 10 list, you guys. If I missed any, let me know what you guys would add. And look forward to part 2, which is going to be 1986. And that's a huge, awesome list of games right there. So until next time, you guys know what to do. You keep that shit retro by going back to 1985 and playing your Nintendo Entertainment System later on.